Joe Sixpack here. Money talks, BS walks. Gotta love it. AC/DC, they rock. One of my favorite bands. Simply because they're so simplistic, yet so to the point, just like me. Continuing on our subject of money. Money, what is money? What is it? This is green shit in my wallet. Actually, I don't have any green shit in my wallet right now. I'll show you my wallet. It's got a bunch of little plastic cards in there. That's the credit part of the money. But notice there's no green shit in there. That's because there's more credit than money. And that's what caused all the crisis in the first place. I want to talk to you about a thing called tally sticks. I mentioned in the previous video about how there was debt-free money, and that there were examples in history of how debt-free money worked, and why the goldsmiths and the money changers and the banks don't like it. I kind of alluded to it a little bit, and I'm going to go into more deeper detail about it. The tally stick allowed the Great Britain Empire to rule the world for 750 years. And it was implemented by some king way back when. I can't remember his name off the top of my head because I don't remember things like that. But I remember concepts. I do concepts really well. I just don't remember names. I can't remember the name of the guy I just talked to 10 minutes ago. But I can remember concepts and ideas very well. You know, each of us have our own gifts. That's mine. Remember names and where I've left my keys are a different story. Tally sticks. Tally sticks were a form of money. And they were pieces of wood. Can you believe it? Pieces of wood. And this idea came up by some king over in Great Britain over 1,000 years ago, that allowed Great Britain to rule the world by creating what is called a merchant class of people. And basically, merchant class, all you hear when you hear the word merchant, what that means is a small business owner. And ignore that phone, because I don't care about that. And I had a couple of them, because I'm Joe Sixpack. Tally sticks were a way of, they were designed to show who owed who what. So let's say I went to a baker, for example. This is just a simple example. They get more complex as you go up in the hierarchy scale of merchants. And I was a butcher. And the baker had lots of baked goods to give away. But he didn't have any meat. But he had a little bit of meat. Let's just say he had a little bit of meat. He had enough to get him through the next couple days or weeks or so, you know, because they didn't have a refrigeration back then. So probably, well, it's cold over there, so you know, maybe he had it buried out in his backyard or something like that. The baker had meat buried out in his backyard. So instead of exchanging baked goods that the merchant, the meat guy didn't need because he had lots of baked goods, and he had his own meat, because he was a butcher, of course, so he had his own meat. He sure as hell didn't need any meat, but he needed bread. But let's just suppose, for the sake of argument, that he didn't need bread, because he had a lot from some other transaction that he created. So the tally stick was formed to create an exchange where somebody could buy some baked goods from a guy, or, well, in this case, where the baker needed meat, but the meat guy didn't need bread. So they created a tally stick where it was just little marks in a stick, and one stick was longer than the other stick. And the longer stick represented the person who the money was owed to, and the shorter stick represented who owed the money. And then these marks were put on it. And basically these marks were an agreed upon transaction between the baker and the meat guy. And so the meat guy could take that long stick and trade it for something that he actually needed. Like maybe he needed vegetables. So he could take that to the produce guy and say, I traded the bakery guy, for some meat, because he needed bakery shit, and now he gave me this stick. Now I could trade this stick for some produce, some vegetables, some fruit from the produce guy. And so, or, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be just about food. He could have traded it for shoes, or a coat, or whatever that he needed. And the tally stick, what made it so that it could be a uniform part of the monetary system in the day of Great Britain, was the fact that you could pay taxes with the tally stick. So the government could control how many tally sticks were out there, but at the same time you could use the tally sticks to buy whatever you needed. And it was only backed by the ability that you could pay taxes with it. That's it. It wasn't backed by gold. It wasn't backed by silver. It wasn't backed by cow poop. It wasn't backed by whatever else you can think of. I just like cow poop because I like saying cow poop. It was backed only by its ability to pay taxes. That king was a cool-ass king. He understood the free market system and how it works. He understood fractal and chaos theory. He understood it. Not a lot of people do. They think that everything needs to be controlled and everything needs to be quantified and all this and that. And that's not the case. It's not the case at all. I can give you another example. The Roman Empire before Julius Caesar. The Roman Empire was the biggest world empire to ever exist on the planet in the pre-modern era, the pre-technology era. And they used copper and bronze coins, and they used them in the same way that they used the tally sticks. What the difference is that the government controlled the supply of these copper coins. And that's what goes into the supply and demand and the free market. And we have to do, you have to control the supply. It's not about what backs it. It could be backed by cow poop. It could be backed by marshmallows. It could be backed by anything. It doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter. The only part that really matters is, can you pay taxes with it? And that's what all the fighting's about right now. Where you see the rioting on the streets, it's either caused by a lack because a country is in so much in debt for one reason or another in its spending habits. Good or bad, that doesn't matter at this point. Because the governments, or the banks, I shouldn't say the governments, it's the banks, are creating money out of thin air and then loaning out more money or credit than that's available in money to pay back. And so what happens is the government, or the banks, they just suck up all this money. And like I said, these banks are not government entities. They are private enterprises. They're not, there's no elected officials that are doing this. These are people that are appointed that goes up through the brown nose chain, or the butt kissing chain that I talked about in the previous videos. So they are completely disconnected from Joe Sixpack and Joe J.O. Sixpack. They do not give two craps about Joe Sixpack. All they care about is their bottom line. And because they create the money, and then they charge all this front load interest so that they can suck out all the money out of the economy, there is no economy. Because it's all transferred to the banks. And like I said, it gets progressively worse and worse and worse until somebody defaults. And that's when the bust cycle ends and then the boom cycle begins. Unfortunately, what has happened is we've reached a point where somebody, some country, some big country has to default. Not some little country. Some big country has to default and give in and say, "Uncle, I give up." I've reached the 14-minute point. Can you guess which country may default? I'll tell you tomorrow. Come on, love before the money comes.